So hopefully by now you have a handle on the concept of putting together the reporter package for TV news. You've learned that with the package, first you have to have multiple interviews, you have to have B-roll that you have to shoot, you have to have a stand-up, and then you have to write the script in a special 2-column format, and then you have to write a portion for yourself to read, and then you have to record your voice and make it part of the story, and you have to match the words that you're reading with the video that corresponds to the words. A lot of work went into this package. Now we're going to start talking about different types of TV stories that should be much easier to do. You should be able to do them, some of them right from your own computer without leaving your house, some of them with very simple, maybe spending a half an hour shooting some video, and that will be all that you need to do. So let's talk about them. We're talking about now the reader, the VO, and the VOSOT. You should find this process for doing these three things much more simple, taking a fraction of the time of the package. In a VOSOT, for example, you only need to do one interview and shoot some B-roll, nothing else. In a VO, you either need to shoot some of the video yourself, or you could even grab it off of the YouTube, and I will tell you which is which coming up. A reader, no interviews, no video, you just write the story. Okay, so those are the three types of stories we're going to be talking about now, and at the end of this video I will be giving your assignment for this week that asks you to do 2 of those 3 types. Okay, so to understand the reader and the VO and the VOSOT most effectively, keep in mind that you are not part of this story. You're going to write it, you're going to edit it, but you will not be reading it on TV. The anchor person will be reading the stories that you write. Okay? So there will be none of your face in the story, there will be no stand-ups in the story from you, and your voice will not be in these stories at all. You are the writer of the VO, the VOSOT, and the reader. Okay? Also remember that because it is not you who's going to be reading them, when you format the story and you write it in your script, instead of putting your name between the parentheses, you will put anchor person's name. Now you're not going to know who the anchor is because the producer is going to decide who reads which scripts. So you simply, when you write your reader, your VO, or your VOSOT story, you put parentheses with the word anchor in the middle of it. So now let's review what you need to do first if you are assigned to write a reader. Okay? In this case, you need to go online and look up a story in the subject category that you're assigned. So for example, if a producer or if I tell you that you need to write a 20-second long state reader, you would go to freep.com or detroitnews.com or mlive.com and find a related story. So let's say I was assigned a 20-second state reader. I would try, let's say, the Free Press online. I could find, here's a story, thousands attend hash bash seeking legalization. In the story, it's a story about beer drinkers and partiers all gathering in Ann Arbor and celebrating hash bash, where it ran from noon till 4 p.m. where everybody could drink and smoke, it looks like. Okay, so I would read through this story, and the next thing I would do is say, okay, I need to write it as a 20-second reader in Rundown Creator. I will go to where it's titled Hash Bash Reader. It's got my name as the writer, and I see that I'm supposed to write 20 seconds. So I simply go into the story. The very first thing I do is put the brackets and say take live anchor, end of brackets. Then I put the parentheses and the anchor person's name. And then I would write a story, thousands of people gathered in Ann Arbor for the annual hash bash. And then I would go back into the story and put details to complete the script. What you want to take a look at is, you might notice here in the estimated duration, I was given 20 seconds to write the story. And so far, I have 4 seconds written. So when I write the story, all I want to do is make sure that I have the proper length. It could be less than 20 seconds, could be a second longer, but I want to try to make it in that length. So I write until I get to the proper length that's required. When I'm finished with it, I save and close. And then to make sure that I have things set up right, I go into the drop-down menu up here until I see printer-friendly scripts. If I open printer-friendly scripts and scroll down to the story, I will see the story starting out. Thousands of people gathered in Ann Arbor, and I have Take Live Anchor on this side. Okay. So the reader is fairly simple. You find a story and you write it on Rundown Creator, making sure that you have Take Live Anchor on the left and anchor in parentheses on the right. When you're writing, keep in mind you cannot copy and paste the story on here. It is your responsibility to write it into your own words. As I've said in the past, anybody who copies and pastes is pretty much plagiarizing what somebody else has written, and you know how the university feels about plagiarism. When you write it, keep in mind the first sentence needs to be grabbing and it needs to be short. You want to avoid at all costs starting in the past. Something happened yesterday is not a grabbing lead sentence. So figure out what the most pressing part of the story is and make that in your lead sentence. Keep in mind that you want to write conversationally, so you want to write as if you're talking to somebody, and keep it short, less than 20 seconds for a reader. Now let's talk about how you would do a VO story. Okay, first let me tell you we're going to be talking about 2 different types of VO stories for this class. One of them I will be asking you in some instances to do a YouTube VO story, and in other instances you will be assigned to do an independent VO story. So quickly, the difference between the two: in the YouTube VO story, you don't need to go out of your house to do this. You do it all online. You will find a story online and then you'll go to YouTube and find some corresponding video that can go with the story that you wrote, and I'll be talking you through how you edit to match that. The other type, the independent VO story, is one in which I'm telling you that you have to go outside of your house. You have to set up a location where you can shoot video that will correspond with a story that might be happening that you've read about either in a newspaper or heard about somewhere that you believe is news. You'll have to do a phone call to set up the place where you can shoot it and get some extra information on that. But there will be no need to shoot anything other than the B-roll. So you don't shoot a stand-up, you won't shoot an interview with anybody, you don't shoot anything except for about maybe a minute's worth of B-roll altogether, and you'll come back and edit that down to 30 seconds worth of B-roll. So 2 types of VOs for this class. One is the YouTube, one is the independent VO story. So let's talk first about the YouTube type of VO story. So for this, similar to what you did in the reader, you want to go and find yourself a story online. So let's say I go online and I find the story about FBI arrest Mexican prosecutor over drug trafficking. I read through the story. Of course, when I'm assigned to do this story, I want to make sure that it's happening on the day of the newscast or within 24 hours of the newscast. It's got to be pertinent news, so I can't look up anything that happened earlier this week or a week ago. We're talking about news that is happening now, so I'm making sure that this has happened right around the day that I'm writing for the newscast. I look and I see a story about FBI agents arresting a guy who is a prosecutor in Mexico on drug charges. It's an interesting story. I read through it all. Then, when I'm ready, I go to Rundown Creator. And in here, we'll see Mexican prosecutor VO. And I've been given 25 seconds to write this story. So I go in there by double-clicking. And you'll see here that I've already kind of pre-written this story, so it doesn't take too long. You see I've started out with Take Live Anchor with proper brackets around it, then the anchor person's name in parentheses. Then I have a first sentence. A Mexican prosecutor has been arrested on drug charges in the U.S. So the anchor person is live on camera saying that. And then I want the video to start after the first sentence. So that's when I say Take VO. See, I have it in the brackets that put it on the left-hand side. Also, what I would like on the left-hand side in the brackets are the supers, or the lower third graphics. So in this case it happened in San Diego, California, and that's my two-line super here. So this is the first sentence. The anchor person is reading it. The anchor person will actually continue to read this whole story, but the director will see the item that says take VO. So they'll start rolling the video that covers the rest of the story. So FBI agents say they believe Edgar Veitia was involved in, and you see here we put a pronouncer because his name would be hard to pronounce. And you also see that the town where he was arrested, also hard to pronounce, so there would be a pronouncer there as well. You see that I was assigned 25 seconds, and it said this was actually written exactly at 25 seconds. If you see what happens, if I were to delete something, you'd see I'm only at 17 seconds. It's fine to have a VO story at 17 seconds, but I'm going to put that back in there. Now you see it's back at 25 seconds, and that's very welcome. If that's the time that you were given to write in, 25 seconds is perfect. All right. So now I have the story written. Now I have to find the video that goes with it. To do that, I go to YouTube, and I put in Mexican prosecutor arrest, and I find several different formats that I could choose from with video that would go with that. When you're looking for video to go with your story, what you're really looking for is one that's not very long. See, this one is 43 seconds long, but this one is 5 minutes and 43 seconds long. You really don't want to work with something that's anything over 2 minutes because it takes so long for it to convert. So let's say we look at this one.
Edgar Veitia, the scene of years. He was arrested. Federal warrant issued in New York.
So let's say that this one will work for us. Now we do notice that we have somebody else's voice in the story there, and I will show you during the editing process how we get rid of that. But let's say this is the video that we want to use for this. So what you do is you highlight the URL and you copy it. And then you open up something that's called Online Video Converter. And I'll have details of this link. You'll see this on Moodle, so you don't have to come back and watch the video, or you might want to jot this down right now, Online Video Converter. You paste the link that you just had in the Online Video Converter. You make the format that you want it to convert to is MP4. And then you click Start. See, now it's preparing my conversion. And once it's processed, then I download it into my computer. I will go to Adobe Premiere and I will import. And I'm going to drag it into my timeline.
Documents. The Attorney General of the Western Mexican state of Nayarit was in a federal jail in San Diego on Wednesday night.
Okay. So the first thing that you see and you notice is that you have the woman's voice that you really don't want to edit into your piece. You don't want that on your air. So you want to highlight this bottom part, and you'd like to get rid of just the audio, but if you hit delete, you notice that both the video and the audio go away. So I'm going to undo that. What I like to show you here is that there is an icon right here that's called Linked Selection, and if you click on it, it unlinks the video from the audio. And in this case, you can click on the audio and delete it, and the video is still there. Okay? So now you have that done. The next thing you want to do is take a look at your Rundown Creator. And you see that you want the anchor person's face to be up when they're saying a Mexican prosecutor has been arrested on drug charges in the U.S. And you want your video to start when the anchor person says, FBI agents say they believe Edgar Veitia was involved in the production and trafficking of illegal drugs, including heroin, cocaine, into the United States. So probably starting out with a video of the prosecutor is your best bet, and it looks like it probably takes about 4 to 5 to 6 seconds to say this. So you go back into your editing, and you can look at both at the same time and say to yourself, well, the first thing I want to do is chop off let's say I want to start with this shot. Okay, so I do the C to get my cutting thing. I go back with the V to get rid of that. I delete that. I right click and I ripple delete. And now this will be the beginning. And it should correspond to the words. Move this over a second. FBI agents say they believe Edgar Veitia was involved in the production and trafficking of illegal drugs, including heroin and cocaine, into the United States. And we could keep it going. Officials say the Mexican Attorney General was arrested Monday at the U.S. border in San Diego. See how that works? And they say Veitia was the chief law enforcement officer in the town of Nayarit, which has been the scene of numerous deadly drug gang showdowns over the last few years. Okay, so now it looks like that video should work well. What I'd like you all to remember is even though we covered enough for it to say over the past few years, you want to add another 5 seconds of video after the required amount. So we're going to make this 30 seconds, 33 seconds worth of video. We can shorten that up. And now we're ready to go ahead and save this. We click File, and we click Save. But you want to remember that what we need to do before we export it is make sure that this story has the same exact slug as the one that's in the rundown. So in the rundown, we've named this Mexican Prosecutor VO. Okay, so if that's the case, when you're going ahead and file, export, okay, and when you're naming it here, it's H.264, you're going to call this, just like that you did in the rundown, Mexican Prosecutor VO. So that's what you do here, Mexican Prosecutor VO. And I'm going to go ahead, I'll send it to my desktop. I click Save, and I click Export. And now I have a video that's ready to go along with the script that I wrote. One more thing that you want to do before you finish up with this assignment is to go to this line, click it, go to the drop-down menu where it says Printer-Friendly Scripts, open it up, and look at the story that you wrote. And make sure that you've written it so this Take Live Anchor is on the left-hand side and all the words that you want read in the teleprompter are on the right-hand side. You'll also see it says Take VO on the left before the video starts rolling over this part here. And you also see that the supers, or the lower third graphics, are here, and that these will go over the video while the person is reading this. So it looks like it's set up properly, so we're all set on that. So that is the way you would do your YouTube VO story. How do you do an independent VO story? Okay, so for this it's pretty much the same. The only difference is instead of going to YouTube to find your video, you actually need to find and shoot the video on your own. Okay, so first you come up with an idea. Let's say you're assigned a local independent VO story. So for that I might go to the Oakland Post or to some local news sites like the Oakland News or the Macomb Daily and look at what's going on. I could maybe even look at the Free Press or the News, find out what's going on in an area near me, make a phone call to somebody to verify that it's happening, and also maybe get one additional sentence because you're reporting this one independently. Where can you go for something like that? Well, let's say you go to the news sources at Oakland University. If you go to Oakland University News, they have a link that's called News at OU, and you can find there lots of stuff that's going on. They have press releases on there. They have information of things that are going to be happening and things that just happened. You can try to update one of those as a story. Let's say you found one about expansion, OC expansion that's coming up, and how they're going to be closing off parts of the OC because they're going to be expanding it. So if this was the case and you wanted to do this story as your independent VO, you would read through this, you would look for information on who you could contact just to get an extra sentence out of them, and then ask them, is it okay if I take some video of the locations where they're going to be doing construction, and maybe have site plans and I can get a shot or two of that. Once you do that, you take some notes from them, you take a sentence or two on a piece of paper. You do not need to interview them on camera. And then with the information that you have, you go to Rundown Creator, and you'll see that a line has been put in for OU Construction VO, and you go in there and you write the story. Okay, so I've tried to write a story ahead of time here. You can see it was scheduled to be a 25-second story, and it was written at 24 seconds. That's just fine. To double check to make sure it looks right, you drop down menu, you go to Printer Friendly Scripts, and you take a look at the OU Construction VO story. Okay, that was the slug for it, OU Construction VO. You see it says take live anchor. You have the anchor speaking here, and then you see that you wrote it so you would have take VO right when the person continues reading at this part. So this is the portion that the video would cover while the anchor person is reading it. And then you also have the supers on here as well. Okay, this is how you want to have it set up. That's what it should look like. For this particular assignment, you would go out and you would shoot video of the OC and maybe some construction plans, and you would edit so that you have the appropriate video matching this paragraph. Then you would have some more video covering this paragraph, and then you would have one more piece of video covering this paragraph. You would edit this all together, probably as a 25-second VO, and then you want to add 5 more seconds to it just to make sure that it doesn't go to black when it's on TV. Okay? So you've edited this just the same as you would your YouTube video, only you're going out and shooting this video. What you've noticed here is for this, you do not shoot an interview. You do not shoot a stand-up. You do not have yourself appear in this at any way, shape, or form, and you're actually not even voicing this because the anchor person's going to be reading this. Okay? This is your independent VO. Some reminders about writing a VO script, your independent script, even though you have made the phone call and maybe have a quote or two from somebody that you spoke with, you do not include full quotes in a VO story. You want to paraphrase anything that they said. Okay? So you'll go out with your smartphone. You will not need to attach a microphone to anybody or interview them. You will need to shoot very clearly, very much as you have been with your video cameras. You'll get a shot. You'll hold it for 6 or 7 seconds. You push unrecord. Then you go to the next shot, and you'll hit, once you have it set up nicely, you hit record. Remember, not a lot of zooms, not a lot of pans, and if you cannot stabilize your phone properly, then you will want to borrow a tripod from me before you go ahead and do this. Or perhaps you have a tripod from somebody else that you could borrow or use your own. Also, once you've shot it from your phone, you'll have to upload it to your computer so that you can edit with it. And then after you've edited with it, again, you want to remember that you will put the slug and the name of the title on your video to match the slug that you have written in Rundown Creator. They have to match exactly or it'll get all mixed up, and when they call for it during the live newscast, they won't be able to find your video and it won't air. Okay? So those two things have to match. That's how you do a VO. So let's talk lastly about a VO SOT.